The first thing that struck them wasn't a sound or a shadow, it was the smell. A faint sweetness, almost like old cologne mixed with cigarette ash, drifting across the hallway even though no one in the house smoked. It came and went quickly, like something passing through the air rather than lingering in it. And for the first 60 seconds in that house, the new owners Michael and Dana Halberg felt an uneasiness they couldn't easily explain. They had been told the place once belonged to John Candy, the beloved actor from the 80s and 90s, but only as a casual detail. The realtor mentioned it with the same cheerful tone she used for the granite countertops and the skylights. But neighbors were different. The man across the street, an older retiree who kept his lawn so clean it looked vacuumed, didn't wave the way friendly suburban neighbors normally would. Instead, he watched the couple unload their boxes with a tight expression, as if he wanted to say something but didn't know if he should. Later that evening, when Dana went to bring in the last of the groceries, he called out to her quietly. "You're staying there permanently?" he asked. "Yes," she answered. "We closed this morning." He nodded, but his face didn't soften. "Just, if you hear anything at night, don't panic. The house settles strange. It always has." He didn't elaborate. He simply turned and walked inside, leaving Dana with an uncomfortable chill. She didn't tell Michael at first, not because she dismissed it, but because she didn't want to seem nervous about a house they just invested their savings into. That night, while unpacking in the living room, they heard the first oddity. The thermostat clicked on, then clicked off, then on again, then off. Electrical issue? Maybe. But when Michael walked to check it, he saw the temperature numbers flickering only when he stood still. The moment he moved closer, the display stabilized, as if his presence corrected it. When he backed away, the flickering returned. He even took a video of it, half amused and half confused. "That's weird," he said. "Maybe it's the wiring," Dana suggested. "Or the sensor," he added. But the video captured something else, something neither of them noticed until later. While Michael filmed the thermostat, a faint reflection appeared in the glossy plastic surface. Not a face, nothing cinematic or dramatic. Just the suggestion of movement behind them. A soft shift of light, like someone large passing from the kitchen doorway into the hall. The thermostat screen glitched at the same moment. They reviewed the video 3 times. "Probably us," Michael said. "Probably," Dana echoed, but neither voice sounded convinced. When they finally went to bed, Dana kept the hallway light on. Michael didn't question it. He also didn't mention the odd pressure he felt in the stairwell, like walking through a warm pocket of air that disappeared instantly when he turned around. Upstairs, the first night seemed quiet. No banging, no footsteps, no dramatic signs of haunting. Just a house that felt watched. Not hostile, not threatening, just aware. As if someone once kind and larger than life had left behind an imprint strong enough to notice new people moving through his old spaces. And this was only the beginning. By the second evening, the house had already begun shaping their routines in ways they couldn't explain logically. Michael found himself lingering in the downstairs hallway longer than necessary, as if something about the space pulled at his attention, some subtle disturbance in the air, the kind that made the hairs on his arms rise without any clear cause. Dana, meanwhile, moved through the kitchen with a gentler tread, almost unconsciously trying not to disturb whatever history clung to the floors. They didn't talk about it. Not in full. Not yet. Late that afternoon, while the sun settled low and turned the living room windows a burnt orange, Michael heard a soft creak from the back of the house. Not sharp enough to be footsteps, not random enough to blame on settling wood. Just a slow, weighted shift, like someone adjusting their position in an old leather chair. He walked toward the sound, thinking maybe a window hadn't been shut properly. As he stepped into John Candy's old study, a room they hadn't touched since moving in, he felt the temperature drop by several degrees. A brief sweep of cold across his face that vanished as quickly as it came. The study still smelled faintly of something sweet. Not perfume, not cleaning product. Something warmer, heavier, like tobacco from a pipe, or the afterscent of laughter-filled rooms where people once gathered and smoked without worrying about tomorrow's headlines. The realtor had mentioned the study was where Candy liked to read scripts and unwind. Michael stood there for almost a full minute, letting the silence press against him, the air as still as the inside of a church. Dana found him that way. "You okay?" she asked from the doorway. "Yeah," he said, though his voice didn't sound like certainty. "This room just feels different." She stepped in and rubbed her arms. "Colder too." They left the study lights on when they walked out. They didn't discuss why. That night, rain began tapping against the windows, steady and soft, a rhythmic background to the quiet unpacking still left to do. Dana was organizing dishes in the kitchen when she heard something that made her pause, a low, muffled thump above her. Not a violent noise, more like someone dropping onto a couch or leaning heavily against a wall. She froze, listened. It came again, softer, almost like the kind of movement a large man might make while walking across a room with cautious steps. She called for Michael. He was already heading down the stairs. "I heard it too," he said before she could speak. They stood silently in the kitchen, listening to the upstairs hallway. For a moment the house felt entirely motionless. Then the faintest shift happened, one slow creak near the guest bedroom, as though someone had rested their weight on the floorboards and then eased off. Michael wanted to go check. Dana didn't. They compromised by going together, walking slowly, hand in hand, like two people exploring a memory rather than a danger. The upstairs hall was empty, the guest bedroom untouched, the carpet smooth except for a small disturbed patch near the door. A footprint? No, just a slight compression. Yet it was enough to unsettle them. "Maybe the house is adjusting to new humidity," Michael said quietly, though he knew the explanation felt thin. "It wasn't doing it yesterday," Dana replied. They returned downstairs, both of them watching the staircase from the corner of their eyes, as if expecting someone else to appear at the landing. But nothing moved. Nothing changed. The house regained its stillness, the kind that made every small noise stand out in relief. Later, when the rain grew heavier and the wind swept against the gutters, Dana dozed off on the couch. Michael stayed awake, scrolling through his phone without really reading anything. His attention kept drifting to the archway leading toward the study. Every few minutes, he glanced up, convinced he'd catch some subtle shape shifting behind the dim light. At some point, he wasn't sure when he heard it again. A sound so soft it felt like a memory. A single exhale from the study doorway, warm and human, carrying that same hint of sweetness he had smelled earlier. He stood up slowly, pulse tightening in his chest. The study lights, which he distinctly remembered leaving on, were now off. The hallway between him and the door seemed to stretch longer than usual, shadows pooling like ink in the corners. "Michael," Dana murmured, half asleep. "Stay there," he whispered. But by the time he reached the study door, the scent was gone. The air was neutral, still, and yet something in the room felt occupied, the way a theater feels full even after the audience has left. He didn't turn the lights back on. He simply closed the door gently, as if not wanting to disturb someone inside. The house remained quiet for the rest of the night, but not peaceful, not empty, just waiting. Don't forget to subscribe and like if you liked this story. Over the next few days, the house settled into a strange rhythm, one that neither Michael nor Dana talked about openly, but both quietly adjusted their behavior around. They moved through the rooms with an unspoken awareness, as though walking through the territory of someone who wasn't entirely gone. Not hostile, not welcoming, just present. The study remained closed. The hallway lights stayed on at night, and both of them found excuses to go to bed later, as if delaying the moment the house became fully theirs to interpret in the dark. On the fourth day, the first undeniable incident happened. Dana was sorting through old boxes in the garage when she found something unusual wedged behind the water heater, a thin folder. Dusty, edges curled from age. It didn't belong to them. They hadn't moved anything into that corner yet. The paper felt brittle in her hands as she opened it, revealing several sheets of stationery with a small letterhead logo, "C. Family, Personal Notes." The handwriting was large, looping, clearly rushed. She recognized the name instantly. Candy. Most of the pages were blank, but the first one had a single line written across the top in blue ink. "Don't forget to check on the guests at night. They always leave lights on." Dana read it twice, Then a third time, the words sinking into her breath like a weight. It wasn't an ominous sentence, more like something a man might say while preparing for company. A reminder scribbled so he wouldn't forget small acts of hospitality. But the phrase "check on the guests at night" made every quiet evening in the house feel suddenly observed. She brought the folder inside, hesitated, then placed it gently on the dining table as though unsure if moving it further would feel disrespectful. She waited for Michael to come home, but the longer she sat alone, the thicker the atmosphere seemed to grow. At one point, she heard the soft creak of the upstairs hallway, 2 slow steps, the same deliberate weight they'd heard before. She sat perfectly still, listening. Her breathing felt embarrassingly loud in the silence. When she finally heard the front door, she nearly jumped. Michael listened carefully when she told him about the folder. He didn't laugh. He didn't dismiss it. He just stood there, tapping one finger anxiously on the dining table, staring at the handwriting. "Put it back?" he eventually suggested, though even he didn't sound sure. Before either of them decided, something happened that shifted the entire tone of the day. The thermostat clicked again, that familiar glitching sound. But this time it wasn't flickering. It was changing. The digits slowly scrolled down on their own: 74, 72, 70 until they settled at 68. The exact temperature the previous owner had mentioned Candy preferred in the evenings when he was alive. Michael stepped closer, watching the thermostat stabilize the instant his hand hovered near it, just like the first night. He swallowed hard. "It's not electrical," he said quietly. Dana didn't argue. That evening the scent returned. Not faint this time. Not quick. It drifted through the living room in a slow wave, warm and sweet, unmistakably human, like a man passing through after a long day, comforting in a way but wrong in its timing, wrong in its presence. Dana sat up on the couch. "Do you smell that?" Michael didn't answer. He was already staring toward the study door. The lights inside the study flicked on. One sharp click, bright enough to spill a thin line of illumination onto the hallway floor. Dana covered her mouth with her hand. "You turned them off last night. I saw you." "I know." They both stood but didn't move forward. Not yet. The study door remained closed, but the warmth of the light pressed from beneath it. A silent, steady signal. The house settled into an oppressive quiet. No rain this time. No wind. Just the low hum of electricity and the feeling of something expectant resting upstairs. Finally, Michael walked forward, each step painfully deliberate. Dana stayed behind him, but close enough that her hand almost brushed his back. When they reached the study door, he paused, holding the knob without turning it, as if trying to sense whatever waited on the other side. The moment he twisted the knob, the light inside went out. A heavy, complete darkness. They both froze. Then very gently another sound emerged inside the room. Not footsteps, not a voice, just the softest shift of weight on the floor, like someone turning toward the door to listen. Michael closed the door again. Slowly, respectfully, they backed away together. That night neither of them slept. Even with every light in the hallway burning, even with both of them lying close together, the atmosphere in the house felt like it had moved from curious to watchful, like a presence that had been quietly observing was now deciding how much of itself to reveal. The house didn't feel dangerous, but it no longer felt empty, not even for a moment. On the 5th night, the house felt different the moment the sun dipped behind the hedges. Not colder or darker, just heavier, as if the air had thickened with a kind of quiet expectation. Michael and Dana didn't speak much at dinner, both of them listening to the house between each forkful, waiting for some sign that the unseen occupant was shifting again. Came slowly. A faint pressure in the hallway, a subtle vibration beneath the floorboards. Then that warm, unmistakable scent drifting through the living room like a small tide, sweet, human, nostalgic. The scent lingered longer this time, hanging in the air as though gently insisting on being acknowledged. Dana was the first to say it aloud. "He's not trying to scare us." Michael nodded, because somewhere deep in himself he'd known that too. Whatever moved quietly in the walls, whatever paced softly across the upstairs hallway at night, whatever glanced the lights on and off, it didn't feel malicious. Felt lonely, curious, almost protective. They made a decision that night without verbalizing it. For the first time, they would step into the study deliberately. Not startled, not defensively, but openly. Michael turned on the hallway light and approached the study door. Dana followed, keeping close, the sleeve of her sweater brushing his arm. The air smelled warm again, almost comforting. The kind of scent that reminded her of old movie premieres and crowded dinners where laughter lingered long after the plates were cleared. Michael held the doorknob. "Ready?" "Yes," she whispered. He pushed the door open. The room was lit not with the overhead lamp, but with a soft golden glow coming from the old table lamp in the corner. Neither of them had touched that lamp since moving in. The tiny dust particles in the air shimmered as they walked in, like the room was breathing with them. Nothing moved, nothing shifted, but the feeling was immediate. Someone's presence, large but gentle, filling the room. On the desk lay the folder Dana had found in the garage. Only now it was open. A single page lay flat, the same handwriting stretched across its center. Guests should feel safe here. Dana exhaled shakily, pressing her hand to her chest. Michael stepped closer, fingertips hovering just above the page without touching it. A low creak sounded behind them, soft, steady, unmistakably the sound of someone shifting weight on the old floorboards. Not threatening, just there. "Thank you," Dana whispered without meaning to, and the scent grew warmer, stronger, as though responding. For a moment less than a breath, the golden lamp flickered. Not violently, not glitching. A gentle pulse, like a nod. The air in the study softened, the pressure easing. The presence felt like it was slowly stepping back, retreating a little, giving them room. They stood in silence for what felt like minutes, letting the feeling settle around them like a blanket gradually cooling after someone leaves the room. Then, from the hallway, the thermostat clicked. It wasn't malfunctioning this time. It settled calmly at 70, a compromise between John Candy's old preference and theirs, a strangely considerate gesture. Dana's eyes watered. She didn't understand why fully, only that it felt like someone kind had brushed past them, leaving reassurance in the air. Michael reached out and finally touched the page. It was warm, not body warm, just warm enough to know it hadn't been left untouched for long. Slowly, the lamp dimmed on its own until the room fell into a comfortable dusk. The presence didn't vanish abruptly. It faded gradually, like a polite host stepping out so their guests could enjoy the evening in peace. They left the study door open that night. Not inviting, not challenging, just open. When they went to bed, the house felt lighter than it had since they moved in. No creaks followed them upstairs. No pressure waited on the landing. And for the first time, the hallway lights didn't feel necessary, though they left them on out of habit. Michael fell asleep quickly. Dana stayed awake longer, listening to the soft hum of the house. At around 2 in the morning, she heard one last sound. A single, gentle footstep at the bottom of the stairs. Not coming up, not moving away, just standing there, as if checking on them once more before letting the night settle. She didn't feel fear, only a quiet human sadness. "Good night," she whispered into the dark. The house answered by settling softly, like an old friend easing into a chair one last time. By morning, the scent was gone. The pressure in the halls lifted. The thermostat stayed steady. The presence didn't vanish entirely. But from that night on, it remained in the background, watchful, courteous, and gently protective, the way a man who loved people might linger in the place where he felt most himself. The Halbergs didn't move out. They didn't run. They didn't fear the house. Because some hauntings aren't warnings. Some hauntings are simply echoes, warm human echoes, of someone who didn't want his home to feel empty. Don't forget to subscribe and like if you liked this story.